The award is granted to the candidate whom the executive committee believes to best personify the bar's statement of professionalism, has made significant contributions to the practice of cannabis law, and best serves as a role model for other lawyers. Factors considered include the reputation, conduct, leadership, activities, and service of the bar, nationally or the community in general, and pro bono service. The candidate's accomplishments must fall within the cannabis field. This is not meant to be an annual award. It is meant to be an award which is given only when someone has the criteria and the standards to be worthy of that award. And that's why I believe it is such a carrot and flying honor.
Cannabis and Psychedelics Law Section, Leland Berger Lifetime Achievement Award. And I thought you had to be dead to have an award named after you. So if you thought that too, I thought I'd share with you how that happened. How that happened has to do actually with how our section happened, which started when I had some law clerks collect. If you collect 100 signatures, you can start a section, or at least have the Board of Governors decide whether to allow the creation of a section. And actually, there was some doubt about whether they were going to do it, not because they're cannabigots, but because there's a lot of sections. There's like 30-something sections of the Oregon State Bar, so there was some concern there. But 4 of us met in a formational meeting once we had the approval from the Board of Governors at John Magliana's castle on Lake Oswego. John and Edgar Diaz, who was my clerk, and me, and Perry's associate, whose name I can never remember. Elise Berger, who has since moved back to Buffalo, New York. And Magliana had experience with other sections of the state bar, with the business section, tax section, and then, at an executive, what's it called? Executive committee level experience. And he thought there should be an award, and he thought I should get it. And the tradition is that when there is a Lifetime Achievement Award that's given by a section, it becomes named after the first person who gets it. So that's how come it has my name. And I mention that because, I was on the formational board, and then I stayed away until this year, and I've been on the advisory board for the past year, and it's been quite an experience, frankly. It's impressive to me the amount of effort and energy and work that people volunteer to make stuff like this happen. Of course, to make stuff like this happen, specifically, there's a lot of energy from Logan and especially from Cassie Peters. And if you were here last night, we celebrated their assistance in making things like this happen, and specifically this conference. But one of the things I did as an advisory committee member was ask that we consider, since it's been 5 years, awarding a new Lifetime Achievement Award. And I am, unless one of you decides that you want me to be of counsel and are prepared to actually pay me money to do that, I intend to retire at the end of this year from practicing law. I can't afford to not work, but I'm tired of practicing law. I'm not going to do it anymore. However, I would gladly return here or to an annual meeting in Portland or wherever to give this award in future years again, as long as I'm still around. So I wanted to share that with you all. Remarkably, the person who's receiving this year's Lifetime Achievement Award wasn't born when I started practicing law. By some frame of reference, Alex Tinker was born the year I started practicing law. I found out at a conference in San Jose shortly after legalization, and when we were wandering around because it was a conference on weed. So anyway, um, and Alex was 3 when our recipient was born. And so, and I'm thrilled to share that our recipient is Courtney Moran. And she's here today. And I know that Courtney's pretty well known, but I do want to share some insight, at least from my perspective, of Courtney being here in Oregon. I mean, I know that Courtney um, was born and went to college in Wisconsin and went to law school in Minneapolis, and she came out here in 2011, and she clerked for me and for 2 or 3 other criminal lawyers. Pat Birmingham, I know, was one, and other lawyers better than me, and like Pat. And um, one of the things we did together was I had represented a guy on a DUI it was a controlled substance DUI, and as I recall, there were several controlled substances that were involved, and we waived jury. And am I the only one here that tries the DUI? Well, let me tell you how it works. How it works is that the science is on our side for cannabis DUIs and for actually probably for psychedelics. What they do is they ask for your breath, and they do a breath test. Sometimes they do a blood test, and then they do what's called a drug recognition exam from a person who is called a drug recognition expert, and that person has a chart with different controlled substances and the different reactions for the different tests. And this person, the DRE, was certain that he was under the influence of cannabis, even though the responses were consistent with other substances. So the judge, because we waived jury, acquitted him. And so he was a medical marijuana patient, and they had some of his hashish, and I moved for its return. And because we were in Washington County, where Pope goes to die, the motion was denied, and we appealed. And because I'm easily distracted, Courtney helped me write the brief, and she wrote the parts about that were required a lot of attention, paying attention. And we submitted it, and the Attorney General's office conceded the issue and ruled that the court accepted the concession and issued a per curiam opinion, saying that hashish was usable medical marijuana, which was a significant development in the law because at the time, medical marijuana patients were allowed 1.5 pounds of usable marijuana. So this meant that patients could have 1.5 pounds of hashish, and this was not news that the district attorneys in Washington County and elsewhere were particularly happy about. But Courtney helped me with that brief. And then she said, well, enough of this. I'm going to go back to school. And she did. And she went back to school and got an LL.M. In environmental law with an emphasis in hemp at Lewis and Clark College. Courtney has published a law review article in hemp. She helped legalize hemp in 5 states. She's passed hemp-related bills. I mean, in addition to being a lawyer, Courtney is an accomplished lobbyist where she's worked on 12 bills in 7 states and the United States Congress. And when I say the United States Congress, I mean the senior senator from the state of Oregon, Ron Wyden, on record says that there wouldn't be a farm bill with hemp in it if it wasn't for Courtney. So, I mean, that's when I refer to her as the hemp goddess, that's how come. It's because of not just because she's pretty much written the statutes and the rules here, not just because she has an encyclopedic knowledge of hemp, not just because she, like me, never thought that legalization of hemp would mean that people would grow it for the flower to process the oil. We thought it was going to be this revolution where it would be food, fuel, with the electric stuff going on now, I thought for sure batteries, much more use of fiber and the rest of the hempcrete and the whole rest of it. And she still works towards those goals that our friend Jack Herer pointed out in his book, The Emperor Wears No Clothes, because Jack truly believed that hemp would save the world. And so Courtney is the founder of her law firm, Earth Law. She's an environmental activist. She teaches a hemp law class, the first hemp law class in the country at Lewis and Clark Law School, my alma mater. And she is the hemp goddess. And even though it's in a compressed period of time, her achievements are, in my opinion, and I think in the opinion of the executive committee of the section, appropriate for the awarding of a Lifetime Achievement Award. So please join me in congratulating Courtney for receiving this award.
Thank you, Lee.
You're welcome. So historically, when I received the first award, Magliana handed me a box that was empty. And I found out last night that this is now a tradition. And I, rather than have Courtney be surprised that there wasn't a physical award today, I emailed her last night and let her know that consistent with, oh wait, Logan's got an empty box. Here you go. Here's your empty box.
Thank you.
Sometime in the next 2 to 5 years, you'll have a actual.
When, it'll be coming.
All right, this is wonderful enough.
Okay.
So as Lee mentioned, this spring I passed my 12th bill, and I started lobbying in 2015. In 2015, I stopped a bill, and the first bill I passed was in 2016. And it was because my staff was asking me all these questions, and I started counting them all up because we were redoing our website. And then I thought, oh my God, this is number 12. Like, this is pretty great. And if Industrial Hemp Act gets in the Farm Bill and the Farm Bill passes, that'll be lucky 13. And so we actually started doing this docu-series that will be launching in the next couple of weeks and going over the history of why I got into hemp and how I started my lobbying career and how we went through the journey of passing each bill. And it's been a really interesting several months of reflecting back on my career and everything that went into each bill and all the negotiations and all the people that were involved. And little did I know this Lifetime Achievement Award. So the last few months I've been already going through this really beautiful, cathartic, reflective time of my career. And in doing so, I actually watched my first testimony that I ever gave to the Oregon legislature, which was in June of 2015. And I surprised myself, quite frankly, just, eager, had just gotten out of my LL.M program a year before that. And, it was because Representative Carl Wilson and now Congresswoman Val Hoyle, who was House Majority Leader at the time, took the incessant emails that I was sending and saw how much I cared about this issue and invited me down to testify. And in that hearing room was one of the farmers that the specific bill in 2015 was targeting, Cliff Thomason. And after the hearing, we talked in the hallway and he hired me on the spot to become his lobbyist. So if it wasn't for all of them, this whole journey on my lobbying career wouldn't have started. But really, my whole career and passion for hemp wouldn't have started without Jack. Jack Herer's book, The Emperor Wears No Clothes, was given to me when I was a senior in college. And I was taking a plant biology class at the time. And our assignment for the class was to write a paper about a plant And at the time I'm reading this book, The Emperor Wears No Clothes, I'm just thinking, oh my God, there's this amazing plant that I was taught in the DARE program was so dangerous and evil, and yet it can create all of these sustainable products and cleans up toxins as it's growing. And so I wrote my paper and I submitted it. And this was a unique paper in that rather than the professor grading us, it was 3 other students would grade us, and then we get the average of their grades, and that was our grade. And 1 person gave me an A and 2 failed me. And so I went to the professor and I said, I did the assignment. And she regraded the paper. She gave me the A that I deserved. But it became so apparent to me right then that just the subject itself, the words itself, were this awful, forbidden thing. And then I went to law school, and law school was awful. I don't know how many of you love law school. I thought it was a horrible experience. But after my first year, I was trying to figure out, how am I going to keep doing this? You know, my mom was sitting there like encouraging me every day, Courtney, you only have this many days left, you can get through it, and just really inspiring me. And then I found out that National Normal had a legal internship. And I got on the phone with Keith Straub. He called me, we had a conversation. He invited me to come out to DC for the summer. And that phone call happened shortly after Jack Herer had died, in like a week or so of him dying. And I felt throughout my career that I was basically chosen to like pick up his torch and keep the fight going and really realize his dream, which became my dream, to see this plant legalized and free. And while, yes, we have federal legalization, I don't think any of us could argue that it's actually free yet. You know, and there's still a lot to do there. But it was through working for Normal in DC that I met Lee. And that was in 2010. And we worked on a project that summer on researching reciprocity and caregiver laws. And Oregon was one of the few states that had a medical program. And so Keith connected me with Lee, and we worked virtually while I'm in DC. He's in Oregon, and he was just a super helpful, knowledgeable lawyer that I'm just, you know, second-year law student and just learning about this, trying to help redo the Normal website. And then fortunately that year, the Normal annual conference was in Portland. So I actually came out to Portland. I met Lee for the first time and decided, hey, I'm going to move here. So I finished law school, took the bar, moved here, found out I passed the bar, and then started working for Lee. And so to get this award with him or from him today it's words can't even describe it. I mean, when I started working with Lee, it was just all a dream. You know, I mean, even when I started working with Keith, you know, and he'd already been working for Normal for almost 40 years at the time. And he just kept telling us, like, one day it's going to happen. One day it's going to happen. It might not be in my lifetime. Well, 2 years later, we had our first adult use states legalized. But it's standing on the shoulders of Lee, of Keith Straub, of Jack Herer, these incredible heroes that have normalize this plant so that someone like me who believed had allies that I could go to and mentors that I could go to pursue my career and to really step forward in that. And so like Lee said, I did not want to do criminal law after that year and a half. It was really obvious to me that that was not my path. And I really just believed about industrial hemp. You know, I think adult use and cannabis needs to be legal as a whole, but it's the environmental benefits that are my passion. And that's why I care about this plant so much. And so I did go back to Lewis and Clark. And my very first day of my LL.M program, my climate change law professor asked me after class, she said, well, why are you getting your LL.M? And I said, I want to run a hemp program. And she said, have you ever seen a hemp plant? And I said, nope. She said, is this even a thing? And I said, nope. She's like, okay, go for it, figure it out. And during my LL.M program, Oregon State University actually started the world's first university level course on industrial hemp. And it was a seminar class, an undergrad class, but I signed up for that. So I'm taking my LL.M, took this very intense undergrad class. And the professor was Andrea Herman. And when I tried to register, her class was actually full. And I reached out to her and I just told her what I was doing and what I really cared about. And she talked to the registrar and got me in her class somehow. And so it was being at Lewis and Clark, pursuing this environmental LL.M, getting to take this industrial hemp class that I started focusing my entire LL.M program on industrial hemp before there really even was industrial hemp law. Unfortunately for me, that year, 2013, was when the Cole memo came out, and Congressman Blumenauer had the audacity to write a letter to our U.S. Attorney Amanda Marshall at the time, and said, if the Cole memo is going to apply to adult use in Colorado and Washington, then this should also apply to industrial hemp, given the federal delineation that all cannabis is within this definition of marijuana. So she agreed. And the day he got that letter, he was actually hosting an event in Portland on industrial hemp, and he had the Department of Ag and he had some other folks there. And so I was literally talking with Congressman Blumenauer that day. I flew to Poland later that afternoon to go to the climate change negotiations. And while I was there, I sat for 2 weeks watching these delegates debate over an agenda that they couldn't agree on what the agenda would be, and nothing got done. And it made me realize my independent action every single day is the only thing that's going to make a difference. Every single one of us, we have so much power. We can't expect someone else to go and do what we want to see. We have to be the change that we want to see. And that really set me on this path. And in 2014, the 2014 Farm Bill is legalized. And the 2014 Farm Bill gives the authority for hemp research. So I think, okay, this is great. It's all going to happen. But an ODA is already starting these conversations because of Congressman Blumenauer. But OSU didn't want to engage. And so nothing happened. So I reached out to one of the farmers that Congressman Blumenauer had. And on behalf of that farmer, in the summer of 2014, I actually applied to ODA on his behalf to get him a license to start growing under the 2014 Farm Bill Authority. And ODA denied our application, but they put me on the Rules Advisory Committee. And within 3 months, we had rules drafted. 2 months later, we had the first license issued. But rather than the license going to this particular farmer, it went to a farmer in Southern Oregon. And it started the debate between cross-pollination. And it led to that hearing that I had mentioned earlier with Congressman Hoyle and Representative Carl Wilson. And I have so much gratitude to share with Representative Carl Wilson, because he saw me not only that 2015 session, but he selected one of his bills for the short 2016 session where legislators only get 2 bills. And he let us have one of his bills. And I had formed the Oregon Industrial Hemp Farmers Association. And in 2016, we passed one of the most comprehensive hemp bills in the country.
Carl Wilson was the Republican representative from Grants Pass, for people who don't track politics as closely as we do. Sorry.
No. Thank you for the context. And so it was his leadership in the Oregon Capitol, and he partnered with our Farmers Association for several years. And I have so much gratitude, not only for Carl, but for everyone that helped with the Oregon Industrial Hemp Farmers Association. Cliff Thomason and Jerry Norton and Greg Clinton and I, we formed it together within moments of ODA sending out this ridiculous letter that they were no longer going to be issuing licenses for the 2015 season. We had numerous board members throughout the year: Karen Sprague, Justin Tombe, Dr. Jay Noller from OSU, Adam Kurtz, Matt Cyrus, all helped lead me with this Farmers Association. And this Farmers Association, we passed 5 comprehensive hemp bills between 2016 and 2021. And it was the work that we did that led to some more recognition on a national stage and gave me the opportunity to start working with folks all over the country on their policies. And, you know, there's a few other people, I throw people's names and people that I just want to thank. This guy, Eric Hempseed Loitz, he helped connect me to people all over the country. He believes in hemp, I think, more than anyone that I've ever met. But it was him connecting me to people in Kentucky where I saw my first hemp crop, connecting me to other farmers around the country that really believed in this crop and wanted to see this dream realized. And fortunately, because of the work that we did with the Farmers Association, I was able to get that more national platform. And regarding the Farmers Association, I have to give a huge, huge, huge heartfelt thank you to Lorna Lyons. She was my assistant secretary all of these years. She's become a dear friend of mine. If it wasn't for her volunteering at first and helping us and sitting with me while I cried after certain defeats in the Capitol and celebrating with me after victories, I don't know if I would have gotten through some of the days over the last several years, especially in the 2020 and 2021 sessions here. And Jenny Dressler with Oregon Farm Bureau, she taught me how to lobby in the Capitol during the 2016 session. If it wasn't for her, I would have never known what to do. And she was just so welcoming and helpful. And the relationship I built with Oregon Farm Bureau over all these years, they've been an incredible ally for hemp. And I feel so fortunate that we've had this partnership, but also the partnership that we've seen with farm bureaus all over the country, because Farm Bureau has been so incredibly helpful, not only in Oregon, but state by state and on a national level. American Farm Bureau Federation has updated their policy guidance documents numerous times. They have an entire section on policy goals specifically for hemp, and they're forward thinking. They want 1%, they want more logical policies put in place, things that we don't yet have, but that, eventually we will get there. The Oregon Department of Agriculture has been an incredible ally since the beginning. Sunny Summers, I have to give her a specific shout out because she has been so helpful coordinating with policy over the years. Rob Bovet, he has challenged me in ways, that were frustrating at times, but that I'm very grateful for now. And also really helped create collaboration with law enforcement, which is something that has been essential to getting to the point where we're at today. And the Oregon delegation as a whole, we are so fortunate to live in Oregon and to have the delegation that we have. Congressman Blumenauer has been a leader for cannabis as a whole for so long. And, he's retiring this year, but he continues to push policy. He sent a letter literally last week, requesting that the House start getting some of these cannabis bills that have passed the committees onto the floor for a vote. I mean, up till, his last days, he is still pushing for this plant. We are so fortunate. Senator Wyden, as Lee mentioned, I worked hand in hand with him in his office, and we went back and forth with Senator McConnell's office. And the year and a half that we worked on the Hemp Farming Act, that was the dream realized for me. My whole goal setting out in my career was to legalize hemp, and we did. Things aren't perfect right now, but we did. We got over that 80-year historical hurdle, and I am in awe and also a little bit disheartened by what's happened since 2018. We've seen some really amazing things. All of these farmers that have been willing to add hemp into rotation, or farmers that completely just went and got farms just to start growing hemp. It's amazing. They're the ones who are actually making this happen. The policies that we put into black and white, they are actually there on the ground making this happen. Any of our clients who are producers, we know how hard they're working. We know the challenges that they're going through. All the manufacturers and the fiber facilities that we've seen come online, I am still so hopeful that the dream that Lee and I talked about when I first met him will be realized. And I think more and more, as more farmers are growing, there's more infrastructure development, we will get to that realization of the potential for this plant. But right now, there's a lot of what I would consider distraction with the hemp-derived cannabinoids and the THC isomers that are out there. And we're going to have a whole panel on it tomorrow, and you're going to hear about how many laws changed in the last week and a half. So it's just a really interesting dynamic of what's going on right now. But this whole journey has been a really challenging, but a really amazing experience. And to be getting a Lifetime Achievement Award at 38, I feel very, very honored. And I'm very grateful for all of your recognition for all of the work and dedication that I've put in over all of these years. And one of the greatest things, and Lee mentioned this, was that in 2022, Lewis and Clark offered me to come and teach a hemp law and policy course. And it was the first one in the country. And I was just thinking, wow, just, 7.5 years ago, I was sitting in this exact room where I'm teaching, and my professor asked me if I'd ever seen a hemp plant. And now I'm getting to teach about this subject. I mean, mind blowing, really. Because when I was in law school, I'd bring up cannabis. I mean, I could barely even say the word. I had a mentor who didn't even really want me to be her mentee because I wanted to get involved with hemp and cannabis law. And now we have university classes. We have university majors. I just did a guest lecture at Stockton University to 58 undergrads who have the opportunity to have a major in cannabis. It's incredible. I mean, what has happened over the last 10, 12 years is remarkable. We went from 80 years of prohibition to being able to have this law section, to being able to talk about this in every day, walk to a store, seeing people actually growing, drive down the I-5 corridor and see these plants. It's not so scary anymore, right? There are some bad things that are happening in the market, but we don't have to be afraid of this plant. And I am honored to, one, receive the award, but to have all of you as colleagues, because all of you are out there fighting this fight every day. Your clients are fighting this fight every day. And we've had to stand out and stand up, and not everyone is willing to do that in life. And all of you have been able to do that. And being able to build the relationships I've built with all of you, with so many folks all over this country, have enabled me to be able to do what I've done. And, Lee, being a pioneer, he really set the foundation for a lot of what I was able to do. And I am just so, so grateful for that. And I also just want to thank my family, of course, because they believed in me, even when they didn't believe in the issue I was fighting for at first. Like, they really still believed in me. And my mom's always encouraged me to be the best at whatever I pursue. And I think that I have fulfilled that. And so I just want to say thank you to all of you.